being repeated now by parents and teachers, many of them across the country. What they say is that our schools have become places that teach testing. They teach you how to test. They don't teach you how to learn. Teachers teach to test because the principals tell them to do just that. Because if the kids fail the test, the principal then loses his or her job. The principal pressures the teachers pressure the kids, and the kids cram for the tests, math and reading exclusively. Gone from emphasis are history and art and music and geography. Even PE is now maybe a couple of 15 minutes a week. So today the president unveiled a new plan. Here to talk about it with me is CNN's education contributor, Steve Perry. Steve, good to see you again.
Nice to see you as well, Rick.
Is this the problem, the standardized testing, where we've become more, where it's become more about testing than about learning?
No, because the standardized tests are simply taking the information that the boards of education and the state boards of education have determined are necessary for children to know and be able to do. So they're saying that by a certain age or grade, the child should be able to complete certain tasks. And to test that, they have to assign tests. Is a standardized test the only way to measure that? It is not. But to throw the test away to say there's something inherently wrong with testing would mean that we should also look at the LSAT and we should also look at the bar examination, because these are also standardized examinations.
Steve, we all took tests. I remember taking tests. We all grew up with the number 2 pencils and filling in those little bubbles. So we've all been tested. I guess the question is now, are they considering junking all of these tests that they take today because there's too much emphasis on testing and not enough emphasis on other things? And by the way, when we test, lately, I see what they do with my kids. It's always about math or reading, never about any of the other subjects.
Right. There does need to be a greater emphasis on more subjects, but one of the reasons why there are less subjects being taught is something that you and I have discussed before. It has to do with the fact that many of these subjects are being cut out as seen not to be as valuable as others to make certain budgetary limitations. What we need to focus on is the fact that the standards are set so that we can establish some measure to determine whether or not the schools are in fact effective. Right now, we have no other methods of determining whether or not the schools are effective. I don't know why the three-point line on a basketball court is where it is, but right now that's where it is. And until such time as it moves, that's where it is.
Well, but here's what I don't understand. Is it possible to be able to find out how good a school is without simply determining how good the kids' test scores are? Is there any other way of evaluating that?
There are other ways. We could look at the overall performance of the school. If we looked at attendance, we could look at some affective measures. We could ask children how happy they are. Those are other informal methods that we could use that are softer. But the truth is, in the end, the school's job is to teach a child to read, write, and compute. And we need to be able to determine through standardization of information that the children can, in fact, meet those standards as they've been set by the public educators who've determined that this is what children in public schools need to be able to know and do.
Well, here's another thing the Obama administration is going to do. They're going to allow states on their own to decide for themselves what some of the curriculum needs to be and their own processes for evaluating the students. States will do it. They won't be mandated by the feds. So Texas's Board of Education has jumped in now, and they've revamped their social studies curriculum. And some folks are saying they may have gone too far. Here's what they're doing. They're stressing the superiority of American capitalism, questioning the Founding Fathers' commitment to a purely secular government by saying it really is, there really was no division of, no separation of church and state. And they're presenting Republican philosophical philosophies in a much more positive light. This is interesting. It's almost taking a political turn on how kids are taught in one particular state. What do you make of this?
What troubles me most, honestly, Rick, is that textbooks are so 2000. At a time where children are using Kindles and computers on a regular basis, the fact that any school district thinks that their students should be learning almost exclusively from textbooks, regardless of what's in them, because history is always told by the victors. So what should happen is that we should be presenting competing interests and different forms of information so that children can in fact prove that they can think and take information and put it together, much like you and I have to do on a daily basis. This is what life is really about, and this is what their life after high school and college will be about. So we need to be preparing them for a greater experience, not just the one in the classroom. So when we're focusing so much much on textbook, that really is what troubles me.
But are you okay with the fact that they want to make sure kids aren't taught evolution? Board members have been locked in an ideological battle between the bloc of conservatives who question Darwin's theory of evolution and believe the founding fathers were all guided by Christian principles. In some cases, they seem to be lessening the impact of Thomas Jefferson because Thomas Jefferson said he wanted to have a wall of separation between the church and the state. I mean, is this about ideology or teaching?
No, it is clearly preaching, and this is where an opportunity we're presented with an opportunity to look at what school choice could really mean. If school choice were in place, then the children could decide, or the families could decide whether or not they want to send a child to that type of school. The one-size-fits-all public school model is what's failing us. No, I don't agree with these philosophies. I mean, whether or not Thomas Jefferson was a cad or a revolutionary, that's not for me to decide as it relates to this particular community's commitment to education. What I'm saying is, what is going far enough? So, for instance, if I'm an African-American, have they truly covered the African-American experience? If someone's Latino, have they truly covered it? And if so, who determines that? Yeah. I'm saying what we need to have are teachers who are thoughtful individuals who provide their students with opportunities to learn from a vast array of information, using technology as it currently exists, and creating deep and abiding learning as opposed to taking a big 4-pound textbook and expecting that that book, which was written 4 years before you got it, is going to give you the information that you need. These children are living in an information age.
Let me just put a caveat on Texas in particular, which obviously has had a large Latino influence. Latino board members and others tried to include Latino figures as role models for the state's large Hispanic population by putting it in the curriculum so kids in Texas would learn about Hispanics. They were defeated. Apparently, one member said the following: they're going overboard. They're not experts. They're not historians, she said. They're rewriting history, not only of Texas, but of the United States and the world. So that's one of the issues that they're coming up with there as well, the representation of minorities in the state of Texas. We're out of time, Steve. I got to let you go.
All right.
But as you know, we'll have you back. Here's what else we're following.
I'm looking forward to it.
The announcement of the